A passionate instigator and dynamic problem solver, Dr. Kevin Ross Emery, the host of the Dr. Kevin Radio Show, will be taking you outside the box, behind the curtain, and identifying the load of BS we are fed every day. And now, Dr. Kevin.
Hello, and welcome to the Dr. Kevin Show here on Ohm Times, where we're changing the world, wait for it, one ohm at a time. And here on the Dr. Kevin Show, it is a live call-in show. You can call in and be part of this conversation by dialing 202-570-7057. Again, that's 202-570-7057. For those of you who are still adjusting to the new 2020 schedule, because it seems like everything is new in 2020, a new way of breathing, walking, eating, everything is new in 2020. Who knew? So this is the second Thursday of the month, and that means it's Thoughtful Thursday, where Reverend Lori Powers Otto and I share stories of inspiration, motivation, and talk about people that are doing thoughtful things in the world, because the world can never have too much good news. And this is our monthly good news show. And then next week, Lori will be back, and we'll have Rob Stewart on to do planetary influences, where we'll talk about the upcoming astrology for the time of Cancer. So, Lori, welcome back. A pleasure, as always, to have you on air. How are you doing?
I'm doing wonderful, Dr. Kevin, and it is always my pleasure to be here. I love Thoughtful Thursday. I love spreading good news, because there's so much bad news out there. And I just like being with you. So it's a good thing.
All good. Well, you know, on my traditional show for a long time, and I still do it on the shows that I have that are where I have guests on the show, I still do my where my hot topic, where something is either gets me hot under the collar or warms the cockles of my heart. And I've kind of stopped doing that on the first Thursday of the month with Matt, and kind of checking in on the politics of the world, and Thoughtful Thursday with you, and then I don't do it on Planetary Influences usually either. But I was drawn to do it this week. So what do you think? Should I do it?
Do it, yes.
Do it. I have a very interesting hot topic, and there's a little part of it that gets me a little hot under the collar. There's a bigger part of it that warms the cockles of my heart. But it is about an article that I read just before I went on air. I was actually reading it just before I dialed in to do tonight's show. And it was from this email thing that I get that talks a lot about what's going on in the LGBTQ T community. And they were talking about Pride Month, you know, and with Pride Month, and now we've got all the Black Lives Matter riots happening and all the different things. And they said, but, you know, even though parades are being canceled and things are not happening, that we have to remember it's now 51 years since Stonewall, and one of the biggest differences we've made has been the telling of our stories. And I thought about that, and it really struck me. What struck me was whether it is Pride, LGBTQ Pride, or whether it's Black Lives Matter, or whether it's any other group that feels like for some reason they're disenfranchised, or that they're treated as others, or they're separates, that there is that power of telling the story, and how important it is that we need to encourage people that are feeling, groups and people that are feeling like they don't fit in, to tell their story. And one of the things about telling your story is we find when people tell their stories, if we listen, that how much we all struggle with some of the same things, how we are more alike than different. That when we tell our story, that sometimes we communicate to other people that we are all just that one race, the human race. And that maybe they did not understand how we were experiencing it because they were busy doing their experience of it. And if we tell our stories for the people who want to listen, then they go, oh, I didn't know. There was a very powerful thing I read a couple of days ago, and it was, this woman was talking about being at how many white supporters there was at the Black Lives Matters protest that she was at. And the protest she was at was really peaceful. I mean, there was no looting, there was no robbers, we're not going to get into all that stuff. But she said she saw this woman that was probably in her 70s, she thought, and she was just holding a sign, and it just simply said, I'm sorry, I didn't know. And that's all that woman could say. Now, could she have known? I don't know. I'm not here to judge. But what I do know is the more that we will shut up and listen to somebody else's story and try to have a little bit of understanding or compassion or that, and then share our story. And this is the place where it gets a little hot under the collar for me. So many people are so busy out there not telling their story, but beating people with their story, that the other person becomes defensive and feels like they need to beat back. And then you see these, well, all lives matter, and these lives matter, and, well, what is this? But do you know any of these people's story? Do you know what they go through on a daily basis? Do you understand where they came from? And I believe that they also need to know sometimes where we come from. That, whoever the we is, whether the we is a straight person, a WASP, whether it's a black person, I don't care. But I do know that as long as we continue to elect divisiveness, and it happens with both parties, I'm not picking on any one person or party today. That's not what this show is about. But as long as we support us and them mentality in our national government, no one's going to ever hear the other people's story, because we have to keep them as the other people. Because there can be no us and them. We cannot have an us and them if they become part of us. And Washington for years has profited and kept power and benefited. All of the political leaders voted in Washington have benefited to some degree by keeping an us and them going. Because when we're busy with us and them, we're ignoring what they're doing. But telling the story and being able to listen to it. And if we truly want to heal this country, we have to start having a version of town halls where people will go in and just for one night put away all their preconceived notions and listen to each other's stories. And that's how I think we could heal America, if we could get this to happen.
And
so,
you're absolutely
what do you
correct. And you're absolutely correct. And I can talk to that because a friend of mine, she's a black woman, she posted just the other day that at work she had one particular coworker that would mock her, belittle her, just dismiss her as less. And that woman came up to her a few days ago and said, I'm so sorry, I never understood. And she said, I understand better now. And, so they're rebuilding their relationship. And it's a wonderful thing. And that let other coworkers come to her and say, we're sorry, we didn't understand. Other white coworkers, obviously. But, and we're seeing that more and more. People are starting to get it, that we are all the same and in this together. But it's really warms my heart to know people who are personally growing and engaging and benefiting from the awakening of people, of other people. That makes sense?
Yep. Well, and it's so funny because I nowhere in my reality had this segue going on, but this upcoming Sunday, I'm launching the new podcast with Rain Thomas and Elmer J. Howard, who you stepped in and interviewed us for our Dr. Kevin show a few weeks back. And this Sunday is the first episode of Laughing, Loving, and Alive. And we're seeking out people who have interesting and meaningful stories as part of what this show is there to do, to put their stories out, to share their stories, and hopefully get people that have very different stories to be quiet and listen.
Yes.
So I didn't mean this introduction to be a segue from my other radio show, but it turned out that way. Isn't it interesting how that happens?
That's what it's doing.
So anyways, hey, just what I need. Another show. So here in the Granite State, the state is starting to open up more. I just read before I came on air that now gyms are going to be allowed to open and other things are going to be allowed to open. So what do you think about all of that? Do you think we're rushing it? Do you think it's time? And how would you advise from what you're seeing with your intuitive eye and your years of wisdom to tell people about this opening of our state?
I think that those who are rushing back to get back to the old normal missed a great opportunity in this quarantine period. I think we are rushing into it too quickly, and I see the second wave being incredibly devastating. I pray that I'm wrong, but let's face it, I'm probably not. The one thing that I saw that happened during the quarantine was so many people who got to know themselves and got to know their family and got to know their neighbors. One of the stories I think I posted today for the show, maybe I didn't post this one. Oh, no, because I read it in a magazine. It's the Merrimack Valley magazine that was a whole issue dedicated to the COVID crisis. And one of the stories was a woman and her husband got the virus, and they were very, very ill. And their neighbors, most of them they didn't know, rallied around them and brought them food and necessities and, took care of things that they could take care of for them. And they built that community or that neighborhood into a community. So the ones who are rushing back to restaurants and beaches and whatnot, I understand they didn't take the time to do the personal work that they had the opportunity to do. In my opinion, they dropped the ball. They don't know how to be alone. They don't know how to be quiet. They're going to... Oh, go ahead.
Go ahead. No, go ahead. Finish. I'm sorry. I thought you were done.
No, I was going to say they're going to cause this second wave to be horrible. And the next quarantine, people are going to have to do the work. They're going to have to look at their lives and look at themselves and get to know themselves and their families, and their communities. That's how I feel about it. It's too soon.
Well, it's interesting because I think that, I started saying in February or March that we were going to have the second wave in July. There was this second wave was going to be in the fall. Third wave is going to be in October. And I've been saying this for months now. Second wave is going to really ramp up in July, and then we're going to have the third wave in October. But one of the things is for the people who couldn't stand quarantine because they couldn't stand to look at themselves in the mirror without a hairdresser. And I'm being funny, but I'm also being serious because I got my first massage today because massage therapists have opened. I wore a mask. She wore a mask. It was all sanitized. We followed all the protocols. It was still a great massage. I love my massage therapist. It was great to see her. And I intuitively check in before I see anybody. Nobody comes in my house that I haven't done an intuitive check on that is safe for me and safe for Jeff and safe for them, for us to all be under the roof. Because if I can't trust my intuitive at this time, I shouldn't be doing what I do. And she's let her hair go natural, as many people have, men and women. And I love the ones that I talk to that are rocking it, that go, I really like it. I forgot, and I think that the white is striking, and I like the little curl, and these comments. And I'm like, these are the people, like you were talking about, that actually did inner work to step away from society's, this is what you need to do to look beautiful, and embraced au naturel because they had no choice. And the ones that were chomping at the bit because, oh my God, I haven't had my hair done in weeks, they're the ones who didn't get it. Right. And unfortunately, they're the ones that are going to end up getting it. And I don't mean like an epiphany light. So what I want to say to our listeners today is, if you're in a state that has recently opened, do what you feel is comfortable and right for you. Don't get bullied. I deal with teenagers in my practice, and even adults, and that are getting bullied by their friends to go out and march in these parades, and they don't feel comfortable doing that because we're still in the season of COVID. And it's not safe, and it's not safe to them to be doing that. And they get bullied about not wearing masks or bullied about, whatever, but they're getting bullied. And the bullies are out in scores and droves on both sides of the aisle right now.
Yeah.
So be true to yourself. You have to live with the consequences of your actions. So when we come back, we will start sharing our stories of inspiration, motivation, and titillation. Oh, I'm sorry. Inspiration, motivation, and I don't know. Come on back and we'll figure it out here on the Dr. Kevin Show.
Conscious media for conscious minds. Om Times. Have you ever wondered how to change your love paradigm? The secret key is finding a love partnership, not just a regular connection. How do you find these? Through conscious relationships. Ascending Hearts Dating is a dating site for people like you that believes in second chances and a different type of spiritual connection. Try Ascending Hearts for free today at ascendinghearts.com and change your love paradigm. Ascending Hearts, the premier dating community for the spiritually awake.
Hello, I'm Sandy Sedgbeer, host of Om Times Magazine's flagship radio show, What is Going On? My passion is sifting through information, research, and innovations from new thought teachers, speakers, and researchers pushing back the boundaries of what we know about life, energy, metaphysics, and the universe. I love shifting perceptions about who we are, why we're here, and how quickly impossible becomes normal when we open our minds, expand our awareness, and accept that the only limits that exist are those we place upon ourselves. So if you're the kind of forward-thinking, eager investigator of what lies beyond the current reality that most perceive, why not make a date to come play with me in the field of possibilities at 4 p.m. Pacific Time, 7 p.m. Eastern Time every Thursday, and together we can discover what's really going on.
A social distancing tip.
While the CDC urges you to avoid close contact, like hugging or shaking hands, there are other non-physical ways to say hello. Wave, wink, use sign language, salute, smile, give the peace sign, throw up an air high five, do jazz hands. Remember, stay a minimum of 6 feet or 2 arms length away from others, and stay home if you can. For more info, visit coronavirus.gov.
Let's all do our part, because we're all #AloneTogether. Brought to you by the Ad Council.
Hello, and welcome back to the Dr. Kevin Show here on Home Time. Remember, we are a live call-in show. You can call in at 202-570-7057. That's 202-570-7057. Today is our Thoughtful Thursday with Lori Powers Auto and myself talking about thoughtful, inspirational, motivational stories from around the world. We could all use a little bit more good news. And interestingly, Miss Lori, I actually had a client just before the show. And I was saying, yes, this is our Thoughtful Thursday good news. And she goes, oh, I'm sure you had a hard time finding good news for this week with everything going on. I said, no, actually, there's a ton of it out there. Nobody just wants to talk about it. So that's our job. So,
That's right.
Hey. So I'm going to let you, and one of the stories I was all ready to post, and I looked and you'd already posted the same story. Great minds think alike. You stole my story.
Which story was it?
It was the guy. Anyways, well, we'll get to it. I'll tell you which story when I see which story it is when I get there. But I'm going to let you go ahead and choose one of your stories to share and why you did it.
Oh, I know which story you're talking about. You're talking about the guy that COVID had shut down his business.
Yep, you got it, baby. Why don't you start there, since it's a story both of us were drawn to.
Instead of feeling sorry for himself and, oh, woe is me, he did more than 500 shopping trips for senior citizens to help them out. He's been making sure they get their food and stuff, and he's just, he took the positive initiative and turned something that, did devastate a lot of people, and he turned it into something positive, I just, 120 senior citizens he's protected and helped, and he doesn't charge them, and he brings them the groceries and other things that they need. It was funny because how it started was one of his he delivers papers, and one of his neighbors is like, could you throw it a little closer to the door because I don't want to go out. I don't want to go out very long, so if you throw it closer to the door, I can just get it real quick. And that got him thinking. So when he went to the store a couple of days later, he said, I'm just going to buy a bunch of groceries. Like he said, if she can't walk 20 feet to get her paper, how is she going to get groceries? And he's been doing that now for, like I said, 120 senior citizens, 500 deliveries. People like that those are heroes right there.
Yep. And there's something else that I want to dovetail onto this story. And it actually, in one of my client sessions earlier this week, it came up because, a client of mine acted out of character for herself, out of the integrity of who she normally is, and snapped at somebody. It turned out that they hadn't done anything wrong, but she was really like snappy and mean about it. And she's not normally like that at all. And she's like, I don't understand what made me like suddenly dive into these behaviors. And after we had the conversation, I'm like, I need to mention this on the radio show. So we are at a time where we are in our lifetime, most of us, except for this, there's some senior citizens left that remember it, but they're the minority, and a lot of them were very young when it happened. So first of all, what I don't think anybody is still around for, maybe a couple of people, but not many, is when we had the Spanish influenza, which we talked about with Rob on Planetary Influences last month. When we had the Great Depression, when the stock market crashed in 29. Now, and when we got involved in our first world war that changed everything from the America, made major changes in who America was, leading to the Second World War. Now we've got more people that remember the Second World War, but that number is declining as well because time goes on. But we are now in a time, people, where we have never, the closest we've got was 9/11 to feeling this powerlessness and this out of control. And that was because we had a terrorist attack on our own country. And it was memorable and it was horrifying and it was scary. But do you know that there were people that for ages afterwards had nightmares and post-traumatic stress syndrome over that incident of not feeling safe? Because we always felt a kind of safety, even if it was an illusion in America. And in the last 6 months, between COVID and now with the additional of this whole the riots and all the things that have gone on with that, and the every day it seems like a new story of some kind of police brutality has showed up. Which, first of all, not all police are bad. There are tons of great police, but not all police are good either. And brutality is happening. We have the evidence. It is happening. And they cannot be allowed to police themselves. It has to be done externally. First rule. But we are at a time where we have never felt so powerless, so out of control, so frustrated. And that energy is permeating our air and our consciousness and our culture. And it's going to make us get depressed or more depressed, or it's going to make us get angry, or it's going to have us get fidgety. We have to honestly be self-aware. I say we're living in the curse. May you live in interesting times. Because our times are so interesting. But you have to be aware. People in my audience, in our audience tonight, you have to be aware. This is negatively impacting you. There is no way it's not. And it may lead you to do behaviors that are out of character for you because you have to release the pressure valves. The person coughed over there. Oh my God, am I going to get it and die? Are my elderly parents going to? I mean, I just had to put my mother in a nursing home in the last couple of months. You think this is a time I want my mother to be in a nursing home?
Right.
We all are having, we're all being affected, but we have to own, I'm being affected by this. We have to do it. One of the homework assignments I gave this client, and I'm giving all my listeners into the audience, even as we're starting to open up, the world is normal does not exist as it existed in June in 2019. We're never going to fully go back to that normal. Give it up, let it go, grieve it, be done with it. The world has changed. It is moving forward. It is not the 1950s, no matter who tells you it is. Get rid of the crinoline. But my homework assignment, one of my homework assignments to this client was, you do have still some extra time. Go find something that makes you feel like you are putting your thumb on the scale of love and light and healing in the world. That it's helping the world. Even if you never see or hear about the number of people that get touched by what you did, know that it is happening. Know that as you are out there, like this man delivering meals to senior citizens, that you are touching people's lives and you are role modeling behaviors that generations that are small or you know, and every time we do this show, we always have a kid story of some kid doing something fabulous. We got one again this week. Yeah. These kids that are showing up, that are seeing it, and they watch their parents and their grandparents. They watch these people. What are they doing? Are they being hateful and mean, or are they going out and saying, who can I help? What can I do? So if you don't want to be completely shoveled under by these next two upcoming waves of COVID, which will come, and we will have versions of quarantines again, and we will have things that will never go back to normal, find something good. Find something that will make somebody's life and the world a better place that you can do. Because guess what? It will help you mentally and emotionally deal with all of the stuff that's hitting the fan. So,
absolutely.
That's the other thing about this story is this guy got to have something he could focus on that he could feel good about that was making a difference. And that is incredibly powerful, not just for the people he touched, but for himself.
Right, for his mental health.
Yep.
He did the soul searching. How can I make a difference? And so he is. But he's one of millions of people around the world who are doing that very thing, stepping up and making a difference. You know, I mean, one of the things I posted was this heartshelpinghumanity.com Facebook page that I'm part of. And all of what it is, someone says, I have this, who needs it? Or someone says, I'm in need, and people come and help them. You know, it's people all over the world supporting each other in whatever little way they can, even if it's just talking or messaging or texting. That can support somebody in ways you would never be able to measure. You know, and then of course there's the concrete ways like the teens in Phoenix that we'll talk about probably after the break. That, you know, all the kids that are stepping up are amazing.
Yep.
Any kids in your neighborhood doing anything to brighten the neighborhood?
Not that I've come across. Doesn't mean it's not happening. But again, as you heard me say last month and the month before, I found out very quickly I'm an essential service, and I had to do something I haven't had to do for years, which is I had to take all my regular clients because the number has gotten large enough that I was like, I can't just do willy-nilly scheduling. You're going to have scheduling blocks, and you're going to have to commit to them. So, like, I'm committed out with clients 5 days a week until September.
Right.
So, yeah, I haven't seen anything, but I haven't been around a lot either. I've had my head right in the how can I make your life better through my client practice mode.
Right. You're helping people in that way, which is very essential.
Yeah. So, but again, that doesn't mean that people aren't out there doing things, because we know they are. In fact, that's part of what we're talking about. And so it's so interesting that you posted that this week, because I posted something that I've never posted before either. And I'm going to segue into it because this is something I would like us to continue to do on Thoughtful Thursdays, and I may even do it on other Dr. Kevin shows. But if we find a particularly good or powerful resource or something that's available in these times, that we can use this show and we can use this platform to help promote or get out there, like you did with the link to heartshelpinghumanity.com. I want us to start when we find things that we go, this is an organization. Of course, we need to check it out. We need to have some familiarity with it. That is a good resource. I'd like us to post the resources as well, because in this time, there are people who need resources that may have never needed them before and have no idea where to find them or where to go.
Right.
And everything is on hold for 3 hours, and understaffed and overdemanded. And so if there's anything we can do that may push somebody in the right direction, I actually cheated a little bit because I got an email from this website, and I checked it out because they wanted me to link one of my web pages to them for resources that they could make available to their people, because they thought that the work that I was doing would be very helpful to their people. And this is a website called Financial Assistance for Single Mothers.com. And I went to the website, and it had all these places where you could click all these things to find out what is out there if you are a single mother struggling in general and specifically at this time. And I thought, that's something we need to promote, because there's a lot of them, and some of them don't know where to go.
Yeah.
Have you ever heard of this website before?
I haven't, but I will definitely look into it, because I know some single mothers, and they could use some help.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. I think that in this time, that besides inspiring and motivating people, giving people access to any kind of resources that could help is us being thoughtful on this Thursday, so to speak.
That's exactly what I had heard in my head. We're being thoughtful, and that's what that's what it's about. How can we show that there's a lot of good out there and help people, at the same time.
Absolutely.
You just have to look for it. I mean, and it's not that hard to find. If you don't want to see the good, you're not going to. But if you're looking for it, it's out there in spades. There is a lot more good going on right now than people realize.
Yeah. Yeah, there's a lot more good, and there's still a lot of resources, and there's a lot of hoops that need to get jumped sometimes, and things don't always work that they're supposed to, and the monies don't always arrive like they were promised, but having access to more resources is only going to speed up whatever is going on and give you some kind of hope. So so that's my invitation. In future shows, if I think maybe if we each find one that we like and post it, because I don't want it to be overwhelming, but we can talk about why we chose this one and post it. What do you think? Are you up for the challenge?
I accept your challenge. I think that's
there we go.
Great idea. Let's do it. Let's get those resources out to people.
And we're getting ready to take our last break of the show here at the Dr. Kevin Show. We'll be back in a moment where we're going to run through some of the rest of these stories of people doing thoughtful things or inspiring things out in the world here on the Dr. Kevin Show.
The Real Conscious Connection. Om Times Radio. IOM FM. The number one reason girls drop out of school in sub-Saharan Africa is lack of access to feminine hygiene products. The Pads for Schoolgirls Project, an outreach of Humanity Healing International, is changing this paradigm by setting up sewing programs at schools, teaching girls a vocational skill, while producing the reusable pads that help keep them attending classes. The girls pay it forward by making and giving pad kits to other girls in need. To learn more, visit humanityhealing.org. Humanity Healing is where your heart is.
More than 24 million Americans have an autoimmune disorder, and that number continues to grow. I'm Sharon Saylor, and I'm one of those 24 million. To put that number in perspective, cancer affects about 9 million and heart disease up to 22 million. That's why I've brought together top experts and those thriving regardless of their diagnosis to bring you the latest, most up-to-date information. Join me, Sharon Saylor, Friday night, 7 p.m. Eastern, for the Autoimmune Hour on Life Interrupted Radio to find out how to live your life uninterrupted.
911, what is your emergency?
My kid shot himself.
All right, where's the wounds?
911, what's your emergency?
Please help, my son shot his brother. 911, what is your emergency? 911, please state your emergency.
Every day, 8 kids and teens are unintentionally killed or injured by loaded and unlocked guns.
It wasn't locked.
Learn how to make your home safer at endfamilyfire.org. Brought to you by the Ad Council and End Family Fire.
Hello, 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 and welcome back to the last segment of the Dr. Kevin Show here on Home Times. And this is Thoughtful Thursday, and I am with somebody that I don't know anybody who's more thoughtful than she is, and that is Lori Powers Auto. As we share stories of inspiration, motivation, and hope going on in the world today. If you'd like to be part of this conversation, if you have your own story of motivation or inspiration to share, please feel free to call in at 202-570-7057. That's 202-570-7057. So, Lori, you got another story to share.
I do. I have one about kids. Big surprise. But as we all should know, if we're paying attention, the Navajo Nation has been devastated by the coronavirus. They don't get the medical we get. They don't get the supplies we get. Most of them will never see a stimulus check. And so they're pretty much left to fend for themselves, and they are dying in devastating numbers. And it's just heartbreaking. So a group of teens in Phoenix decided that they were going to do something about it. I mean, it's, a couple 17-year-olds, a couple 16-year-olds, and a 13-year-old. So these are, just a group of kids, nice kids, and they were in quarantine. They were bored. They're like, what can we do to help? And there's that question again. What can we do to help? What can we do to make a difference? So they ended up starting a fundraiser, with family and friends, and then they expanded and expanded. And then they contacted the Navajo Nation and said, what do you need? And how can we get it to you? So they gave him, information. And all of a sudden, they were at $11,000 for supplies and food and necessities to send to the Navajo Nation. There was no one directing them. These kids came up with this idea on their own. They did everything. I know they had support from family and friends, but this is who we should all strive to be. You see a problem, you fix it. You care
yes.
for your, and none of them are Native American, is my understanding. They're, these are not directly impacted or related. They just cared enough to do something, and that to me is a hero, and hopefully our future.
Absolutely. Well, and again, every month we have 1, 2, sometimes 3 stories of some young kids, young adults, teenagers that are donating stuff. I mean, I didn't post it because I couldn't find it again, but one kid took the money that he got that was set aside for, I think it was his 8th birthday, and they were supposed to have like a Chuck E. Cheese's or whatever, but there was this money, and he took it all and he donated it. So he took his birthday party that he couldn't have and donated the money out to help people that were in need. I mean, yeah. And you have to wonder sometimes, looking at the condition of the world, what do we do to deserve these kids?
Absolutely. But a lot of kids are stepping up, and we adults need to follow their example at this point. I mean, there's a lot of adults, but there's many.
So there was a story that I found that I thought was very interesting, and it involves Sikhs. Now, you're familiar with Sikh, right?
Yes.
The Sikh religion?
Yes.
Okay. So one of their tenets is that you feed people. You feed people in need. I mean, this is one of the things they do as part of their religious thing. Their centuries-old faith tradition of nourishing anyone in need has found new energy and purpose in America turmoil. And so all of their like retreat centers or all of their places of worship are always set up with like these huge kitchens. They have plenty of donations and people coming in, things that they've set up that they've been doing for years, because when they set a place up, this is one of their religious tenets. Now, I know a lot of religions out there that talk about doing good works. These guys are out there, and they've set up, and they've gone through the roof, the need for them during the pandemic time. And they said that some of these places are serving more than 100,000 people every day. 100,000 people a day they're giving food away to, feeding them because they're in need.
That's amazing. Amazing. Now, just think if all the religions would step up and do something similarly, what an amazing difference we could make in this world.
Now, that's one of their largest temples, and it's in India. But they have a Sikh center in New York in Queens Village, and they've served more than 145,000 free meals in the last 2 months. That's pretty impressive. This is a small center in New York City. 145,000 in 2 months is still pretty impressive that they're feeding these people because they're living their spiritual beliefs. And you feed the people who need food. You feed the needy.
Right, and they don't have you have to be part of our religion or you have to be this or that. They are not discriminating against anybody. They are including anyone who needs a hot meal. And that's a beautiful thing.
Yep. So, do you have another story to share?
Oh, I think I do. Where was I? 15, 19. I know. I shared my stories, my 3 that I posted. But
okay.
I'll just go back and touch base on why I asked you if any of the kids in your neighborhood were doing anything, because in our neighborhood, some of the other neighborhoods around, the children are going around leaving painted rocks or small gifts for the neighbors. They never take credit. They never tell who did it. And they're just doing it to brighten people's days. Just a small little thing. And it makes a big difference. You go out to get your mail and you find a nice little surprise there, homemade. It just makes you smile.
Yep.
So if children can do things like that, why can't we adults do things like that? Make your neighbor a meal. Just say hello to people. Make a positive difference.
Yep. Well, I haven't done anything with either of the elderly neighbors that are either across the street or beside me, because one of them has a kid living with them and one of them has their kids visiting all the time. But I keep checking in. I keep on like, okay, their kids are stepping up and doing this. So, but I keep an eye out. And sometimes that's all we need to do is just keep an eye out to see if somebody is struggling, to just make sure. There may be nothing more than just, I talked to one of them the other day and, they were frustrated that they couldn't go out and the kids wouldn't let them go out and buy anything on their own. They had to call their kids and the kids went out and bought it and brought it off. Yay, kids.
Yeah.
See,
that's one.
But
you did do something. You did something very important. You connected with your neighbors and said, I'm here for you.
Yep.
And that's incredibly wonderful.
So I had an interesting one left to share. And I love this story because I think it's a sign of the times. And I think a lot of times people convince themselves that it won't make a difference, so they don't bother to do something. Like, no one's ever going to listen. No one's going to hear it. No one's going to take action. Why bother? I mean, how often have you heard people with that thought process?
Oh, yeah.
Yep. I'd just rather complain about it. You don't want me to do anything. Now, back in the day when I was a manager and was a training manager of managers and stuff like this, I always had one hard and fast rule. Don't come to me with any problems without at least one solution. I don't care how ridiculous it is, but do not walk into my office without a solution. That tells me you thought about it enough and invested enough in it to come up with something. That was my rule. And, you know, so, but this woman, a Missouri woman, she asked Merriam-Webster to update its definition of racism. And they've agreed. And who would have thought? She's 22 years old, and she really wasn't even expecting much. But she wanted to let the dictionary publisher know that she thought the definition of the word racism was inadequate. And so she reached out. She sent a couple of emails, and they responded. And they haven't come up with a new definition, and they're doing it, but they have agreed that the old definition is inadequate. The first definition of racism is a belief that race is the primary determinant of human traits and capacities, and that racial differences produce an inherent superiority of a particular race. Pretty inadequate, isn't it?
Yeah, it is kind of lacking. Yeah.
It's certainly not the 21st century.
No.
And, you know, one of the things is people who are struggling to identify that they may be racist without realizing it. That they don't think, hey, I'm going to be a racist. Just how they brought up, what they've seen in movies, on TV, the books they've seen, the experiences they had. They have a belief system that unless somebody questions it, and they're willing to be questioned, that they don't perceive as being racist. And one of the things that I thought was interesting was one of the reasons she wanted to change was that people who don't really understand racism, when somebody says you're a racist, if they look at this definition, they go, well, wow, that doesn't describe me. Therefore, I'm not a racist.
Oh, yeah.
And she felt, yeah, and she felt like that was damaging to try to get the real work done. So I just thought that was an interesting story. And go ahead.
I was going to say I agree because a lot of people don't even acknowledge that they're racist because they don't really understand what it means. I met a girl once. She said, I'm not racist. I just think black people should be slaves. I'm like, what? How does that even make sense? So updating the definition will go a long way to healing this planet. As simple as that.
Yeah. Well, and it will be interesting to see how many of these kids that we're talking about that are out there doing good things in the world, like the kids that I read about, the teenagers in, I can't remember where it was. It might have been in Iowa, I think. In Iowa, a whole group of white teenagers got on the front line between the BLM protesters and the police, and basically was like, you have to go through us to get to them. And they, in being interviewed, they said they knew that Mommy and Daddy would bail them out and could afford to bail them out.
Right.
And, you know, but will these kids go back to school and challenge some of the ludicrous things we're still teaching in our educational system?
I hope so.
You know, will this really, you know, and Rob said on the show last time, and do you, so next week, if you want to come listen to Planetary Influences, Rob, this upcoming week is going to be talking about things in the time of cancer, but he's also going to be doing a chart on air to give people an idea of what getting a chart is done, is going to be done. Did you know that, Lori?
No, I'm not.
Yep. He's gonna go through a chart on air, and then the following month he's going to do a solar return of that chart to explain to our audience what they look like. So you don't want to miss it.
No.
Lori, thanks as always.
Thank you, Dr. Kevin.